manage cyber risk. Yes. To manage our cyber risks in the age of AI, right? Artificial intelligence. So just a brief background about me. My name is Dr. Kwame Boakye Gyan, and I have, as you can see on the screen, I have over, hold on one second. I have a few people joining, so I might go in and out. And I have over 14 years of experience uh, in cybersecurity with expertise in governance, risk, and compliance. So I focus on the framework side, right? The governance, what framework we are using to protect our systems, how to manage the risk in our industries or our environment, and then the compliance or the regulations that we need to adhere to, right? I'm also an expert in security assessment and authorization of systems. That's what I currently do. I currently work as an information system security manager with the government, and also as an adjunct professor of cloud computing at University of Maryland Global Campus. So anybody who has taken a cloud computing course at UMGC, maybe you've seen my name somewhere. I hold industry recognized certifications, including CISSP, CGRC, and the AC CISO certifications, and a few others, right? And then beyond my professional roles, I'm an active contributor to the cybersecurity community. So this what I'm going to say here might interest a few people on this side. Has anyone heard of ISC2? ISC2. If you're in cyber and IT, you write certifications, you might have heard of ISC2. Anybody? Can just raise your hand if you have. Okay. So I serve as an exam subject matter expert and developer for, okay. Thank you, Zane, if that's how you pronounce your name. For the CISSP, that's the crown jewel of all the certifications when it comes to IT, and the CGRC certification. So the CGRC is what speaks to governance, risk, and compliance, the area that I delve in, right? So that's what I do. I also, and this side will also interest most of you, I also serve on the panel of ISC2 scholarship committees. What it means is that annually, what ISC2 does is they put out a lot of scholarships, especially for women, and then for anybody who is getting into the cybersecurity industry, right? Or who has experience or has worked in that industry, they can give up to $10,000, whatever it is. And I sit on the final scholarship panel. So one of the things after this seminar, I can also share how you can connect with me so that when these scholarships are posted, I will send a link to you guys to apply to it. And it's global. It's not US specific or US based. It's global. Wherever you find yourself, whether you're in Europe, Africa, anywhere, you can apply to it. And then you can get, I've helped a few people to introduce it to a few people, and then it's serving them very well. So my dedication to advancing the cybersecurity profession was recognized this year by ISC too. Luckily for me, or luckily or unluckily, I was awarded the Global Achievement Award for the Volunteer Service Award for the Americas region, right? This year by ISC Square. They gave me, so they held their ISC Security Congress in Nashville, Tennessee last month. So I was there. I received the award. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, in cybersecurity, like, there are so many opportunities where you can volunteer, share knowledge to impact the growing community of cybersecurity. So I'm very excited to discuss how we can secure the future by leveraging the NEST AI framework. I'm using NEST AI framework because it's US specific, because I'm here. And then DevSecOps, NEST, both NEST and DevSecOps cuts across globally, right? To manage cyber risk in the age of artificial intelligence. Everywhere we go, everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. We are using these systems. So we need to make sure that from a cybersecurity perspective, how are we managing or protecting these information systems? Okay, so what is artificial intelligence, or how do we define artificial intelligence? So on your screen, simply put, artificial intelligence is just a simulation of human intelligence, right? By machines to perform tasks like learning, reasoning, decision making, creating PowerPoints, and a few other stuff, right? Examples include ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and many others. Most of the students even know more AI stuff than us, right? At one of my classes, a student was telling me he actually has an AI app that will help them to detect whether they are plagiarizing, right? Before they even send their assignment to me, before I put it in, turn it in, right? And these are all good tools that will help you to do that. But how are we using these tools, right? What are the cyber risks that goes with using these things? So as artificial intelligence continues to transform industries and organizations globally, it is also reshaping the cybersecurity landscape. There are different threats that are being introduced, both unprecedented opportunities and complex risk, right? And you know how AI-driven tools enhance threat detection, automation, but the same technology is also being used to weaponized by adversaries to launch more sophisticated attacks, right? All these phishing and global huge cyber attacks that are going on. There are a lot of machine learning and AI-driven tools used to do that. So this seminar will examine how organizations can harness some of these frameworks that are coming up, right? So that we can harness the power of AI responsibly while implementing robust strategies to manage emerging cybersecurity risks, to protect our critical assets or infrastructure, and most importantly, to ensure trust in an increasingly intelligent digital world, right? Because now, like where we find ourselves, it's like machine learning is everywhere, right? Artificial intelligence is everywhere. So how is it difficult for cybersecurity professionals to manage the risk in these systems, right? Before we can really do that, we need to look at where we've come from, right? So we have traditional on-prem systems and cloud systems, and I'm sure most of you here are in the master's applied psychology course, right? So you know about some of these things, but when it comes to traditional on-prem systems, before we can even explore how to secure AI systems, we first need to understand traditional on-prem and cloud systems and some of the foundational frameworks used in securing these environments or systems, including what I mentioned, the National Institute of Standards and Technology Framework. And then in Europe, you have the NIS 2. That's the EU Cybersecurity Directive. And then there's also the International Standard Organization, the ISO 27001 standards and others, right? But how do we define these systems? So on your screen, you can see that I have on the traditional on-prem systems refer to computing environments where all hardware, software, and data are physically located. I still have a few people joining, so once I pause, it means I'm trying to admit someone in. So traditional on-prem systems refer to computing environments where all hardware, software, and data are physically located within an organization's own. Zeman, thank you for showing your video. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So where all hardware, software, and data are physically located within an organization's own facilities, right? Rather than being hosted or managed in the cloud by a third-party organization or provider, which means most organizations, when it comes to traditional on-prem systems, own, operate, and maintain its IT infrastructure locally, typically within a data center or server rooms, as most of you are aware of, right? So, and 1 second, let me admit these guys. Okay. And then what are cloud systems? Cloud systems refers to just the opposite of this. It refers to computing environments where the hardware, software, and data are hosted not locally, right? But are hosted and managed on remote servers by third-party providers. So it allows the users, the employees, the organization to access their resources and services over the internet instead of managing or maintaining them locally, right? So the question is, with both of these systems, how have we secured these systems as cybersecurity professionals? What frameworks have we used in the past? And I'm going to speak to this from the US perspective, right? Give me 1 second. Let me admit 2 people in here. Okay, so for cybersecurity professionals, especially those in the United States, including myself, right? We often rely on the next special publication, and I'll have references. I'll share the slides with you. I'll have references where you can go back and refer to these things. We often rely on the next special publication, 837 revision 2, as you can see on the screen, right, to secure traditional on-prem systems. And what is this framework? This framework provides a structured lifestyle-based process for managing both cybersecurity and privacy risk across all types of information systems, right? So under this approach, an on-prem system is treated as an information system that must progress or go through the risk management framework to ensure that it is securely designed, one, implemented securely, and then maintained properly. I have 3 people waiting here. Let me admit them. And maintained properly. The framework emphasizes embedding security and privacy consideration throughout the system development lifecycle, right? From initiation to decommissioning. So from the initial design through deployment and ultimately decommissioning. So as you can see on the screen, the framework consists of 7 different steps. And the goal of the framework is to obtain something that is called an authorization to operate. Simply put, if you Google, you see ATO. It's called an authorization to operate. And then I will explain that in using real life scenarios, right? So what you see on the screen, you can see that there are 7 steps. The first step is what you see in the middle called the prepare phase. The prepare phase in real life can be termed as planning, right? To do anything in this world, you need planning. Same in IT or in the system development lifecycle process. You need to prepare. And what does it mean to prepare? We'll go through that process. And then once you prepare the organization and the systems, you go through the second step, that is categorize the system. You have to categorize the system, whether that system is a low impact system, a moderate impact system, or a high impact system, right? Based on that categorization, you would have to select security controls as cybersecurity professionals to protect the system, to make it, you harden the system, to make sure that nobody that shouldn't have access to the system is getting access to it. And I'll explain all that. How do you select all these controls? I'll go delve into it briefly. And then you need to implement those controls that you've selected, go through to do an assessment of the controls, and then get the system authorized. So when the system is authorized, that is when we say, okay, this system can actually be used to meet the business mission, right? Or the mission or goals of the organization. Without getting that ATO, the system will not be authorized, meaning the organization will not be allowed, especially from the federal agency standpoint, and even most private entities, to use that system that they want to use. So take an HR management system that is being used in a federal environment or in a private organization. What happens is that if you don't have an ATO, they will not be allowed to use it because it might include certain data or information that is very confidential, right? Has integrity and then needs to be available every time. So we cannot just have a loose system that anybody can hack into it. That's the process. Once you authorize the system, it doesn't end there. It goes to a phase called monitoring. But even though NIST says monitoring, this is called continuous monitoring. It is something that you do continuously. It's like you installing a Ring camera in front of your house, a new house that you've built, right? And then you install a Ring camera that checks whoever is passing, who is trying to get into your house, who is knocking on the door. If you don't consistently check if that Ring camera is working, there might be a time when a thief might or an armed robber might break into your house and you will not have a video of who got into it because the battery to the Ring was dead, the Wi-Fi was not working and all that. So in order to make sure that controls that we select are always working and operating as intended, we need to make sure we go through that what? Continuous monitoring what? Phase, right? So these are the 7 steps and I want to go a little deeper into the 7 steps. So what does the prepare stage do for us? What it does is it helps us to establish context and assign roles and responsibilities to help manage the risk in our environment or in the system, because every system has a system owner. So during this phase, they pick who a system owner is, right? Who is the data owner, we pick who the information system security officer is, who is the vulnerability or the SOC people, do vulnerability scanning, penetration testing. We identify all those people, the system, the sysadmin, the database administrator. And we properly define the system. Every system has a system description, right? So throughout the prepare phase or the planning phase, this is what we do. We carefully structure the context, establish context, assign rules, and define our risk tolerance, right? By defining what type of system we have, creating a system description. Once that is solidly done by the organization, then we move to the second phase called the categorization phase. Most organizations, whether you know it or not, have systems classified or categorized. They have systems that they consider low systems, others that they consider moderate systems, and there are others that they call high or critical systems. And then that makes sense. Let's think about it. When do you decide whether a system is low, moderate, or high? That's when the categorized step comes in. What does it look like? It looks at the data and information in the system, right? So looking at the data, take an HR database, for example. If you have an HR system that only has the salary of your employees in there, just the salary. It doesn't have their names, nothing. No PII. Who knows what PII is? Anybody? PII. You can unmute yourself if you know what PII is, just to state it. Anybody?
Personal identifier information.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you, Ama. Yes. Personally identifiable or personal identifiable information. So any information that can be used, right, to identify you as an individual. So for example, if you're in the United States and someone should have access to your social security number, they can use that to figure out your full name, your address, maybe or even your date of birth and all that. All those information that a hacker or an individual can use to identify an individual completely, right? So that they can do whatever damage or harm to them. It's called PII, right? So let's take it that my job, I'm not an adjunct professor at UMGC, but I teach at a kindergarten. I teach kids like alphabets and numbers, and that's all I have on my computers. And then Ama is a financial analyst who is always overseeing big corporations, financial statements, their data, their budgets and all that. My system and Ama's system, which one will have the highest security control? That's how you do categorization. So you categorize systems based on the data that the system processes, it stores, and transmits. And that's the foundation of the risk management framework process by NIST for traditional on-prem systems. So based on that process, and there's a process to do that. There's a NIST document that you use to identify the data that is in there, right? And then based on the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, these three things are the three security objectives or pillars for any information system, right? So confidentiality means that the data or information, it's only accessible by the privileged few, people who need access to it, right? If I invite you to come to my house for maybe a backyard party, and then I'm telling you that the party is at my backyard, I give you access to it. But I find you in my master bedroom. You've breached my confidentiality. You've actually moved from one place to the other where you don't have access to, right? And then data should also have something called integrity, right? If data has integrity, what it means is that the data cannot be easily modified. It cannot be easily modified by people who should not have access to that data. So if data is easily modified by, for example, if you go on Wikipedia and then maybe you see my name on there, you can actually change my name as to where I'm located from the United States to the UK. I don't know if they fixed it, but most of the time, that's why people, from the academic standpoint, we don't use Wikipedia as a reference when we are writing papers and writing publications and all that, because it has not been peer reviewed, and then it can also be what? Modified, right? That's the integrity part. And then when you need data, the data should always be available. So that's why we have the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and what? Availability. So based on these three security objectives, and then the data that systems process, store, right, and transmits, That's how you do your categorization. So you categorize it. What would happen? What's the impact when this data is breached, compromised, or someone should steal data? Is the impact low, moderate, or what? High. Based on that categorization, that's when you decide that these are the controls that we need to select to protect our home. Imagine just having a very small home. You don't have anything in there. You only have like 20 euros in the house. There's nothing else in there. But you are protecting that house with maybe laser beams, alarm system, dogs, guns, paying a security guard almost like 2,000 euros to protect the house, right? It wouldn't make a lot of sense, excuse my language, because the asset itself or what you have in there, the protection costs more than that, right? The security measures you put in place, it doesn't make any business sense. But when you have a high, for example, you have another house where you have gold bars in there, you have TVs, you have electronics, you have your laptops and gadgets. Yes, it is worth it if you can protect it with all those security controls. What it means is that you select your security controls based on the categorization of the type of system you have. Right? So if it's an HR system that has nothing in it and stuff, once you categorize it as low or classify it as low, you go back to the framework, go to select phase, and then use another NEST document called NEST Special Publication 853, and it's currently in revision 5. And then you select your baseline controls to protect your confidentiality, integrity, and what? Availability, as you see on here under what? Select. Mostly when you select a control, if I walk to, for those of you who have actually been in the States or anywhere, if you go to Europe or in a hardware store and you come to the States, you go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot and you buy a key and a lock, right? And you bring it home, you put it on your desk. Whatever you want to secure, they use the key and a lock to secure. It is not secured until you install that lock, right? If you don't install it, properly put it in place, whatever you have that you want to secure, it's not secured. It's still what? Open to the public or thieves, whoever comes to your house to steal it, right? Same with IT or risk management framework. Once you select controls from this, you need to work with the technical team to implement these controls. And this is the baseline for most of the frameworks that we have in Europe, in America, everything. You need to make sure you apply and document how those controls have been applied. So for example, most of us, when we walk away from our laptops, I know it happens. For me, if I walk away from my laptop, if I'm not doing anything on it, in like 5 minutes, the laptop will shut off, right? There are others who have their laptops not really how to set up in a way that they can walk away from it and the laptop might not lock, maybe in like 48 hours or anything. Maybe they don't have anything on it or they don't know that they have to lock the laptop. But irrespective of that, whether you set it up or not, there is a default setting in your laptop that when you walk away from your laptop without not being actively using the laptop, it locks by itself. This is as a result of a control that we've selected and implemented. It's called AC-11, session lock, right? So when you've selected session lock for your system, you work with your technical people to say, listen, for this particular system that we have, it's a financial system. We need to set it up to lock in exactly 1 minute when we walk away from it or if left inactive, right? So this thing happens, but maybe where the framework that guys still process, some of you or most of you might not know. It's because of the AC-11 control called session lock in revision 4 and in revision 5 or version 5, we call that device lock. So once you properly apply this, you walk out and then it locks, it means you have implemented it. But you would not know until you do an assessment, which is the next step in the risk management framework, right? You have people who work as assessors. So if you go on Indeed or you go to any of these recruitment platforms and you put in the keyword security assessor, you see a lot of jobs will pop out. You can test it as you are on this. What does this mean? It means that the organization need assessors to actually come in and assess the validity of the controls that they have implemented. How are they doing that? They are examining, interviewing, and testing some of these controls to make sure that these controls are operating as intended and achieving the desired outcome. So they physically come and look at your laptop and say, you claim you've implemented AC-11, which you've documented in a system security plan. How do we know you've done that? Let's sit behind the laptop, leave the laptop and see if it locks in the set time that you said the laptop will lock. So they said, log on to it, don't touch it, and see if it locks in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, depending on the set timeline that you have for it. If it locks, it means the control has passed. You properly what? Implemented that control. If it doesn't, it means it has what? Failed. You need to go back, readjust it, set it up based on the organizational requirements and what? Policies. When all these things are done properly, then it goes to an authorization body during the authorized phase. It goes to a senior official in the organization who looks at all these documentation and say, okay, wow, you actually categorize the system. You have the right security controls selected. You've documented how these controls have been applied to the system. We assessed it and we didn't see any failure. Most of all these controls passed. Even if they did not pass, you have a plan of action to fix it. So we are going to authorize the system. What it means is that they then give you an ATO. Because you have an ATO, what it means for everybody who hears about the system is proper security control baselines have been what? Applied, and our data or information is what? Secured and what? Safe. That is from the traditional on-prem system standpoint. After which, then we move to the continuous monitoring where we employ vulnerability scanning team, the penetration testers, those of us who help to manage the weaknesses in our systems using automated tools to see that like there's ongoing log monitoring, incident response, and periodic reassessment to maintain that protection that we have for our system. So this is how traditionally our traditional on-prem systems, especially in the States, have been secured. The risk in it have been managed using the next special publication, 837 revision what 2, that outlines these 7 steps that helps you to secure it. So next is how do we secure? So we've moved from the traditional on-prem system. How are we currently securing the FedRAMP, the cloud systems? When we talk about cloud system, let me go back. When you talk about cloud systems, we are referring to the software as a service, the platform as a service, the infrastructure as a service that most of you know about, right? How are we securing those systems? There are organizations coming up with different softwares. If you pick your phone, there are a lot of apps on there. How do we know that all these software as a service apps that we are logging on or using, how are they safe? Are they secured? If we put our data in there, how do we know that someone is not having access to our information, right? What the state does is that when securing cloud systems, it requires a combination of technical controls, shared responsibilities, and continuous monitoring, right? So unlike the traditional on-prem system or environment that I discussed, when it comes to cloud security, it depends on the collaboration between the cloud service provider, whoever developed that app and is selling it in the marketplace, and then the customer or the organization trying to purchase it. They need to work together. Why would they have to work together? And I'll explain this in real life. If I have a few dollars, right? I think I have a lot of money and I'm claiming that I have like maybe 100,000 and I keep it at home. But I'm also scared that keeping the money at home, I need a lot of security staff because there are a lot of bad people or bad actors in my area who can actually break into my home and steal my money. So one of the things I did was that, okay, let me buy a safe, right? So I bought a safe that cost almost like 2,000. This is an example. Then I put my money in there, lock the safe, have the codes, everything to it. Then I also said the safe is not enough. Somebody can just come in, pick the safe. So I purchased a dog and I have a security person, professional who stands in front of my house so that nobody can come in to steal the money that I have and some of the assets that I have in my house. But at one point in my community, I hear that a bank has been opened in the community where they can actually keep your money secured. So I said, listen, I'm tired of having all these security staff, the dog, the security man. I don't have a lot of money to pay this. So I pick the money and then I take it to the bank. I open an account and I keep it there. Do I still need that security professional who was protecting the money? No. Maybe I don't even need a dog. Maybe I can even go and sell the safe and use the money for something else. Why is that? Because the cloud service provider is like the bank. The bank is now what? Protecting my asset for me, on my cash for me. So I don't need all the security controls I used to have when I had the money at home, right? So what does it mean for everybody? It means the cloud is protecting an aspect of my assets, and then I'm also protecting it. How am I doing that? Maybe I have online credential access to my online banking. I'll make sure that I keep it in a safe place. I will not write it down for everybody to know. When I need it, I put in my credentials, my username and password, use multi-factor authentication to get access to my account, check what my balance is and all my balances, and then I'm gone. But I don't need that fiscal security because it's the responsibility of the bank. That is what you see on the right side, the FedRAMP ecosystem talks about, right? So this process that we use, the underlying framework that guides this whole FedRAMP process is the same risk management framework that I discussed earlier, the NIST SP 837 revision what? 2. So the US government uses this program to establish and enforce a standardized approach to securing and protecting cloud products and systems. So if someone says, oh, I have this software as a service app I just created, how do we know that it's secure for us to use it? The FedRAMP helps organizations go through a rigorous process so they get these products FedRAMP. So if you hear that an organization, for example, maybe Google Gemini is saying that, or Google Suite or Google Drive, whatever it is, that we have been FedRAMP, it means that they have actually applied the right controls, and then their software as a service or platform as a service or infrastructure as a service is really secured, right? So you can use it and be rest assured that your data or your information is protected because they go through a rigorous process like we did when I explained through the risk management framework. But the ecosystem includes a few people, the federal agencies, and then the organizations that want to use the cloud service providers, IaaS, PaaS, or software as a service, right? What do the federal agencies do? What they do is that they sponsor those CSPs so that they can use that software in their organization because they want to make sure that the government data is really protected. In doing that, they want to make sure these products and services are properly what? FedRAMP. The CSP is what you see here, the CSP is the cloud service provider. We have a lot of cloud service providers, Amazon Web Services, there's Microsoft Azure, and there are a few others. So when they come up with their products or their services, they get it FedRAMP. That's why we can use it around and say, hey, we are sure that this is secured, right? In doing that, they work with people called 3PAOs, third-party assessment organizations. Like the traditional risk management framework, these are the organizations that assess that platform or that service to make sure that these people have properly categorized their system, they have selected proper controls, implemented, and then they do the assessment. So they authorize it. In the on-prem system, when a system is authorized, we say the system has been ATO'd, right? But when it comes to a cloud product or a cloud service, we say the system has been what? FedRAMPed. A system has been what? FedRAMP. So this is what we use to what? Protect cloud systems. So I moved from traditional and I came to cloud products and cloud services, software as a service. And it's the same process that we use in the RMF. The first thing we do, you need to categorize whatever cloud product we have. Is it a low cloud impact cloud system, or is it a moderate or a high? Based on that, we select controls from the 853 and then tailor those controls to the cloud environment to make sure we are addressing. What are these controls that I'm talking about? Access control, configuration management, contingency planning, and a few other stuff. I have this example that I usually use, right? When it comes to IT, one of the things that we focus on most of the time is separation of duties. And the control is called AC-5. What does it mean? If you are a sysadmin, your job is to do sysadmin stuff. If you are a database administrator, your job is to do database administrator stuff. You cannot be the same person selecting the controls for your system, right? And then also doing that database stuff. Like somebody needs to hold someone accountable for this. And it goes through that access control. So it's AC-5 separation of duties. And then we also need to make sure that we have certain incident response controls in there. What happens if there's fire in our environment, right? What do we do? How does it impact our environment? How does it impact our business? And the most important one, we have a contingency plan. What happens when our system should go off? What do we do? You need to have a contingency plan that is based on a business impact analysis. You need to do an analysis of your business to say, hey, listen, for example, and I'm going to use this example from a developing country that I'm very, very familiar with. So I'm originally from Ghana. And in the past, we used to have a lot of, how do you call that? Electricity issues, right? Electricity issues. So if you decide that you want to start a business in Ghana in terms of cold store, having a lot of cold stores where you keep perishables like vegetables, fruits, meats, fish, and all that. And then the lights can go off on Monday and come back the next Monday. You need a contingency plan. You are better off coming up, making sure you have a generator on the premises that immediately the light goes off. What happens? The generator kicks in, or someone goes behind the business to turn on the generator. That's a contingency plan. But you can never have a proper contingency plan without looking at the business impact analysis, doing a business impact analysis. You need to understand your recovery time objective, recovery point objective, right? And the maximum tolerable downtime. When something should go off, when they come back on and all that. Those are the things that feeds into this process, right? So same as a on-prem risk management framework, the FedRAMP process also takes the same process. The only thing is that during the authorization phase, with the on-prem system, it is only a senior official with the organization that reviews documentation and approves the system and says this system is okay to be used in our environment. It has an ATO. The ATO is usually valid for 3 years. Like anybody who has used a driver's license before, you have a time when you get it and then it expires at a certain time, right? So it's expires in like 3 years, but it needs to make sure you are continuously monitoring it, right? So the AO, that's the authorizing official or the senior official, usually looks at documentation that you've provided saying, okay, they actually categorize their system, they selected proper controls, right? They've properly implemented it. The 3PAOs have done an assessment and it is really solid. There are a few fail findings, but they have a plan of action and milestone to fix this, right? So we can authorize it. That's the on-prem one. But it is done by a team called the JAB. It's called a Joint Authorization Board, and it's made up of 3 different agencies, like the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, and then GSA, that's the General Services Administration of the United States, right? So you can see that this is a very comprehensive process, right? To make sure, so if you see that a software has been FedRAMPed, it means like it went through a tough process. It went through a very, very, very tough process, very consolidated, comprehensive process, and it's deemed secured. How do you know that softwares have been? And I have this as part of the reference and resource. If you go to the FedRAMP, if you are on here, you can go to fedramp.gov and then click on Marketplace. You will see all the products that have actually received FedRAMP, and you see that you see Zoom on there. You see how do you call those other ones, Teams and all those ones before. So the Zoom that we are using has gone through the FedRAMP process to get authorization, telling everybody that this is a secured platform to use. That's it. So that's how we manage or secure cloud systems. These are one of the frameworks that we use. Any question before I continue? Feel free to ask or type it in the chat once after I can look at it and then we can go from there. Okay, so why are we even here? We are here because we are turning to the seminar itself. The key question is this: how can we secure the future and manage cyber risk effectively in the age of artificial intelligence? We've looked at traditional on-prem. We've looked at what the cloud is doing with the FedRAMP. What are they doing with artificial intelligence? So the answer lies in our focus for this seminar, right? Next, I've been talking about Nest have actually developed a framework. So they are leveraging the Nest AI risk management framework alongside with DevSecOps practices. And we'll talk about DevSecOps at the tail end, right? But the Nest AI risk management framework is designed for voluntary use. Note, I said is what? Voluntary use. So it's a guidance. It's not mandatory for anybody to use because there are other frameworks. In Europe, we have ISO 27000. I don't know if they have a specific framework for AI, but Nest has been taking the initiative and then they've developed the Nest AI risk management framework, right? It is designed for voluntary use and aims to help organizations to integrate trustworthiness considerations throughout the system development lifecycle, right? So the design, the development, the deployment, and then evaluation of AI products, services, and what? Systems. The NIST AI framework ensures trustworthiness by evaluates a few factors here. The validity of the AI system that we are trying to use, how safe it is. Is the AI system secured, right? And then in terms of privacy, when there are privacy data in it, is it being protected? And how fair is that data? And is it accountable? It talks about accountability, right? Like if something should go on, for example, if you go into ChatGPT and then you put in something and then it fishes a response for you, and then you know, because you're a subject matter expert, sometimes you read it and you say, oh my God, this is actually this is not the answer at all. This is wrong and stuff. Who is held accountable for all these things, right? So as shown on the screen here, on your screen, the AI framework core, it outlines certain outcomes and actions that facilitate dialogue. So there are a few core functions. It's called govern, manage, map, and what? Measure. And then I'll delve deeper into it. So if you have time, I've added that link to the resource and reference section. Just make sure that you read this. Most of us, when it comes to cybersecurity, most of us think about the technical side of things, vulnerability. I do vulnerability scanning, I do penetration testing, I do coding here and there. But let's also think about the governance framework side of things, the risk and then the compliance. What do we need to do? So that's why in Europe, for example, we came up with the GDPR, General Data, I've forgotten GDPR regulation, right? Privacy regulation, to make sure that certain privacy information are properly secured, right? Are kept, what is private needs to be kept private, right? So these are the reasons why these things come out. So the NIST AI framework, as you saw on the initial screen, is what is used. That I think I don't know if I've seen any AI framework, but I think this is the main one that most people are using, and it's global, right? So uh, pay attention to it, take a look at it, and then see how it's being used. So as discussed on the previous slide, the NIST AI framework provides organizations with a structured guidance, right, to design, develop, and deploy systems responsibly. The goal here is to manage the risk related to AI. So systems are trustworthy, they are safe, they are aligned with organizational and societal values. So the AI framework, it's organized around two components, right? That's what I discussed the first one in the beginning. The first component is called the core. The core talks about the govern, the map, the measure, and then the manage. And also there is the profile part, right? So what you see on the screen are the four core functions that the NIST, hold on, someone is trying to, the NIST AI framework talks about. Let's like who is overseeing this AI system so we can hold somebody accountable, so we can design policies, right? And then have an organizational culture to support that AI system responsibly. So you see an example there. Let's take a bank who is implementing an AI loan approval system. how do they meet this governed function? What they need to make sure is that they need to set up a governance board to ensure that AI decisions follow fairness, transparency, and meet the regulatory compliance standards. That's it. There's an oversight. There's a governing body when it comes to using AI responsibly. You cannot just wake up and say, oh, let's develop this AI to use this to launch missile. No. Are we going to use this? There's somebody or a board that needs to sit and say, this is not something that we need in our environment, and it doesn't even meet the regulatory compliance standards, right? And then the next core function is called MAP. So the map function requires organizations to understand the content, the context, the intended use, the stakeholders, and then the risk environment and potential impact of the AI system before development and development. Like, how is this going to benefit anybody? What are we going to use it for? How will this meet our business goals, our mission? Is this part of our overall organizational vision and mission and all that, right? And does it fit into our culture and all that? So you need to map these things. Take a healthcare provider, mapping how an AI diagnostic tool will use its patient data, the source of the data, and then the impact on the patient care decisions. How are we going to use this data that we are collecting, right? Is it secure? Is someone going to be able to have access to it and stuff? How are we protecting it? And then we need to also understand one second, I have two people. We also need to understand the measure function. The measure function requires the organization to do an assessment of the AI system's performance. How are we using it? How is it performance? Is it actually meeting our need, right? What are the risks involved? Is it trustworthy enough? We need to use metrics and tools and testing methods to check how this is being utilized and then how it's actually supporting our mission. And then, like, what are the metrics? Is it helping us? Does it make sense for us to invest in this, right? Is it putting patient data out there? Whatever it is. So an example is an autonomous vehicle company measuring AI's detection accuracy in different weather conditions and testing for biases, right? So how does it do during the winter, right? The summer, the spring, and all that. You look at all these things. And then the last core function here is called manage. Manage is the last core function in the next AI framework. What does it do, right? That function requires organizations to implement controls and take actions to mitigate the identified risk. So you can see that everything that we've spoken about, it talks about implementing controls. Controls here, it ends with implementing controls, mitigating those controls to manage the risk in the environment. That's what this framework also does, right? So the manage function requires organizations to implement controls and take actions. Maybe do we have to encrypt data, right? Do we have to put, is it AES 256 that we are using? Whatever mechanism that you are using, but you need to make sure you manage the risk in your environment. Like an example will be a social media platform adjusting its content recommendation by AI, right? To reduce the spread of harmful information. You know, there are platforms, anybody can put out any hateful information out there. This group has done this person has done this, but there should be a mechanism to what? Continuously monitor these things so that it's not dangerous for us to use it, right? It's ethically sound for us to use it. The ethical part is one thing that is also built into it, but this comes in the second component when we talk about the profile component, right? This is what helps organizations to customize the framework to specific use cases. What they do is they align the risk priorities, the requirements, the controls to their operational contents and content. That's what happens when it comes to. So this is the framework that is currently being used to manage what? AI by cybersecurity professionals. So just to summarize the NIST AI risk management framework, the NIST AI, as you can see on the screen, the NIST AI risk management framework establishes a comprehensive approach to trustworthy AI, emphasizing first validity, safety, security, explainability, privacy, which is always key, security, fairness, and accountability, right? So in looking ahead, Organizations that integrate this framework will not only manage AI risk effectively, but also lead in a shaping ethical, transparent, and responsible AI innovation. And by embedding these principles into AI development and deployment, we can foster technologies that empower society, inspire confidence that we know that the AI we are using, we are confident that everything that is spitting out is what is the correct thing, is legitimate, and that will drive sustainable progress in an increasing AI-driven world. I heard a quote recently when I was watching an IBM technology video, and then it says, in a world where AI is everywhere, trust is everything, right? And the NIST AI risk management framework can help us build that trust, not just in the technology, but in how we use it, ethically using it, right? So if you work with AI or are affected by it, you now have a framework to manage these risks. This is a starting point and it's voluntary, but it can help you to see some of the risk in your environment. I want to shift briefly and talk about some of the commonalities between these three frameworks that I've discussed, right? And then how it maps or it's aligned to the DevSecOps, right? So in looking at these three frameworks, all three frameworks emphasize ongoing identification, analysis, and mitigation of risk, right? And that mirrors DevSecOps, development, security, and operations, where you have security in the middle when it comes to system or software development lifecycle. Everything you do, make sure security knows about it. They are scanning to see the risk of vulnerabilities in it before it goes operational or before it's deployed, right? So it's a continuous improvement model. So although each of the frameworks that I discussed above serves a different purpose, they share several core principles that align closely to what DevSecOps practices, right? So first, the NIST risk management framework for the traditional on-prem, it applies a lifestyle-based approach to assess and manage cybersecurity and privacy risk. Same as the NIST AI RMF, it focuses on continuous monitoring of AI systems trustworthiness, including fairness, robustness, security risk, building security in the middle of all the development processes. And FedRAMP especially requires continuous monitoring of the cloud system used by organizations and federal agencies. And these are the same things that DevSecOps does. Security is built into the development pipeline. So everything, all codes that are being developed, source codes, they are being scanned and all that, right? So it's built in the process. They don't wait till the last minute before this is done. And then risk is addressed early and continuously, not only at deployment. That's why DevSecOps, the security is in the middle. Whatever you are developing, we are scanning and checking the risk involved in it before it goes to deployment. So DevSecOps relies mostly on automation, real-time monitoring, vulnerability scanning, rapid mitigation, like how fast we can fix this issue, right? And which is the central of all these three frameworks that I discussed. And this brings us to, for those of you who have not heard what DevSecOps is. So what then is DevSecOps? DevSecOps, simply put, is the practice of embedding security into every stage of the software development process. Every stage, every iteration, whether you are using Agile, Waterfall, whatever you are using, you need to embed security in the process. Why is that? It promotes collaboration amongst developers, security experts, and operation teams to create a secure software that is both efficient and secure, as I mentioned, right? This approach fosters a culture where security becomes a shared responsibility across the entire development lifecycle, as you can read on the screen. So nobody is left out. As we are developing here, you can see developing code, planning, building, and there's testing being done. Security sits here to do all the testing and all that before the release, before it goes to deployment. And even when it goes to deployment, it's operational. Security is still monitoring, doing continuous monitoring like all the other frameworks that we spoke about. So we sit in the middle, cybersecurity professionals, IT security, SOC as a service. Once you develop, we come in and say, what did you develop? Give us the source code. Let's scan it. Let's see what's going on. So there are several benefits of practicing DevSecOps, including building a secured or security awareness culture, right? It helps to promote awareness of security best practices. It develops features securely. These softwares are developed very securely, making sure we have the appropriate and right security controls in there. It fosters collaboration across development, security, and operations. They come together. That's why it's called DevSec and what? Ops. And it helps us to catch vulnerabilities early, right? We conduct security checks at every development stage. Why do we do that? It minimizes the user disruption and enhances the overall security of the software or system that we are using. And it reduces time to market. This is very important to many organizations that are coming up with software as a service to be sold on the marketplace so they can make money. They want to get there fast, right? In getting there fast, let's address all the issues now, manage the risk in the environment, automate some of these security testings to speed up the development and reduce some of these manual human error and prevent testing what? Bottlenecks. This also helps to ensure regulatory compliance. How is that? It integrates compliance checks into development and identify data protection what needs early. So if it's in Europe, you look at the NIST 2. If it's here, you look at the NIST controls that you need to be compliant with. If there's anything that has to do with privacy, you're also paying attention to GDPR. If it's healthcare in the States, you're paying attention to HIPAA, ISO 27000 security management, like all the 9 yards of all the frameworks that we have. Even though there are challenges, I would say, excuse me, even though there are benefits, there are also some challenges. Like not everybody is welcoming to DevSecOps, like especially when it comes to technical folks. They don't want to see security folks. They see us as the policemen or we are stopping what they are doing and stuff. So there is some resistance when it comes to a culture shift, right? When you want to embed security in everything that the developers and the operations team are doing, this. Oh my God, these security people are always on our neck saying we should do this and stuff. So there's a bit of resistance when it comes to the cultural shift, but this is where leadership comes in, right? Where the executives are able to gradually and slowly talk about this to transform the organization from their old method and move into that secure DevSecOps where we are security is looking at everything, making sure it's helping to manage the risk in the environment before deployment, right? And apart from the resistance, some of these modern tools that needs to be integrated into our environment can be tricky, right? So software teams use a lot of various tools to build and test applications, but in integrating tools from different vendors into the software delivery pipeline can be very challenging, right? Because traditional security scanners and all the ones that we have most often struggle to keep up with the modern development practices, right? There are a lot of modern technology changes and all that. And that brings me to the DevSecOps automated tools. There are certain tools that helps to manage this process. So as modern systems grow, more complex and threats evolve, manual security checks alone are no longer sufficient, honestly. And not that they're not just efficient, sufficient, but it's also not effective in a way. So automated tools have become essential to implementing DevSecOps effectively, right? These tools enable organizations to identify vulnerabilities earlier on in the development lifecycle and force security standards consistently, meaning it's a consistent approach at looking at source codes and all that, right? And rapidly remediate risk without slowing down development. And what are some of the examples of these tools? That's what you see on here. We have the CyberMACS. It's a static application security testing tool used in DevSecOps to identify vulnerabilities early in source codes, right, during the development process. So what it does is it automatically scans code to detect security flaws such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and a few others, or insecure configurations, right? Those are a few that you have here. There's also the GitHub. Somebody's just joining at the tail end. There's also the GitHub Advanced Security, right? It scans open source libraries and dependencies, right, that are used for development for known vulnerabilities. So when you go on the CVE database, you see some of this information on there. And then there's Splunk. Splunk is a big one. Splunk plays a powerful and versatile role in DevSecOps. What does it do? It serves as a centralized security monitoring analytics and incident response platforms. It helps teams to integrate security visibly. When you go on the Splunk dashboard, you can see everything that's happening, right? Visibly and intelligence throughout the software development and operational life cycle. So in my view, I feel DevSecOps is never complete unless you have some automated tools integrated into your environment supporting rapid software development. What are some of the key takeaways in today's seminar or the topic that has been discussed, right? So for me, these are a few things that you can take away. Securing AI begins with a strong cybersecurity what? Practice, right? IMF and FedRAMP provide structured approaches for traditional and cloud what systems. And the NIST AI framework also introduces a new risk vectors requiring specialized frameworks like the what? The NIST AI framework. So organizations, individuals can adopt the NIST AI framework, and this is just a recommendation. It's a starting point to enhance trust and transparency in AI systems, to mitigate risk proactively early in the game, right? And then lead ethically and responsibly AI, a responsible AI innovation. So I'll conclude by saying, as artificial intelligence continues to advance, the cyber risk associated with its adoption, it keeps growing more complex and what? Sophisticated. Securing the future requires proactive strategies, continuous vigilance, and a strong cybersecurity or security culture. And by prioritizing cybersecurity at every stage, from design, deployment, and operation, we can actually harness the power of AI responsibly while protecting critical systems, sensitive data, and organizational trust. So I have a few references and resources here. Included here, you can find the next publications that I use, the fedram.gov website, where you would see cloud products and services that have been FedRAMP, which most of you use, like the Zoom that you are using, and then the next special publications. It has the OWASP DevSec maturity model when you are developing systems, some of the controls that you have to use, and then trustworthiness and responsibility and responsible AI. That's where you find all the NIST AI stuff that I've been talking about. And then questions, and then thank you so much for your time. If you want to connect with me, I will share this. So I'm on school. Mostly I'm on school. I have let me stop sharing for a quick second. Yeah, I'm on school. It is a platform where, let me see if I can share that here. Yeah, it's a platform where I have some courses on there. I have members. I have close to 216 people. I post different things, right? So for people who are members on here, I have a page where for continuous education where I put a lot of resources to support our cybersecurity professionals to go on there. So you can go and then join. If you go on and then because you are part of this class, yes, I will put the link in the chat in a few seconds. Because you are part of CyberMACS and are part of this program and stuff. Like when you reach out to me and then you say you are trying to join, but it's asking you to pay a fee and stuff, I will waive it for you, and then you can join. You will see a lot of valuable data information. There are training courses here about certified ethical hacking and a few other things that you see. Consistently, we are posting stuff on there. So you can see that even 2 days ago, FedRAMP, let me share my screen briefly. Where is it? FedRAMP posted their new continuous monitoring playbook, right? So I have it on here, and it's also in that section. These are some of the things that you see on there. Any new directive from Europe that comes on, yes, Amo, thank you. That comes on, you see it on there. So that's it, and I'll welcome any questions from anyone. Thank you so much for your time. No questions? How to join is asking for payment. Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you too. So, Amo, this is what I would do, right? If you can, for all the attendees who were part of this seminar, please send, you already have my information, send me their email addresses, and then I'll send them a free invite where they don't have to pay anything, and then they can be part of this. Does this work?
Yes, we
Awesome.
can do that.
Okay.
We can plan it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And then I'll share this. And then on this same platform, anytime we have the ISD Square Scholarship information, like especially for women, right? There are a few that I said on the board. I'll send the link on there, and then also maybe send it directly to your email or give it to whoever my point of contact is at CyberMACS, and then they will share it with you, because these are great ways of networking, one, and also making sure financially we can be supported, right? We all need money to help with our training, our tuition, and all that, with accommodation, and these things go a long way. So yeah, thank you so much, Hamza. If you share the emails, I will, latest by Monday, I'll send an invite to everybody on this attendees list, and then we'll go from there.
I would be sharing the emails of all the students with you.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time for listening. I hope most times we focus on the technical aspect of this, but everything that we do technically, right? It's because of certain frameworks behind it. We need to be aware of the frameworks. If you are in Europe, you are in Asia, wherever, always make sure in Africa, you know the cybersecurity, not the framework, but maybe the directive in your region, right? So that when you are done and you're advising clients and all these things. And what I've just spoken about this seminar goes a long way. If you are in the United States and then I'm teaching the risk management framework, it means at the end of the day, you can be an information system security officer or an information system security manager. And these are all 6 salary jobs. So look into this. And then when you have questions, then just shoot me something in school once you have access to it. And then we'll go from there. Thank you again. Um, if there are no other questions, I would just say I appreciate the time and I thank you for your time. Wish you all the best, and hopefully I'll be a part of this CyberMACS team for some time. And then if anything comes up new, we can have similar webinars or seminars to make sure you guys are informed adequately. Thank you so much.